And welcome to another edition of the Tyson Talk podcast. I am your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How are you fellas doing?
Doing well, man. Happy New Year to the boys and anyone listening to this podcast. It's a cold one in Chicago today, man. I know Zoo went to the Bears game this past weekend. Beautiful win. Justin Fields locked in for that 5th-year extension, man. Absolutely passing on Caleb Williams. Give me Marvin Harrison Jr. and give me that DJ Moore duo, boys. Feed it to Chicago fans. Come on, man. We're desperate.
Yeah, I know. I see on Twitter Marvin Harrison liking some tweets about he would fit perfectly, man. Him and DJ Moore went like around the same school area, so they're around the same area. Ohio State connection. So there's a lot of breadcrumbs right now of Marvin Harrison going to the Chicago Bears, but we'll see if the GM can pull another heist again. If you got the number one pick, you trade down this ain't Bryce Young, man. Little 5'9" Bryce Young. You got Caleb Williams. You can trade down Caleb Williams. You get the biggest draft day haul in the history of trading. That's what you're gonna have to get. Because if you get a guy as the number one pick with this amount of hype, man, get the deal done, man. Get the deal done.
Absolutely.
I'll also back up Peebush a little bit with the Justin Fields seemingly being the Bears' future quarterback. Saw a couple of mock drafts where Zoo brought up them trading down and whatnot. If they could somehow pull off a combo of getting Marvin Harrison Jr. and then getting the LSU receiver Malik Neighbors, it's like a number 2. You want to talk about that? And I hate to do this, projection saying like these are going to be the best trio of receivers. But if anybody is familiar with LSU just as a whole with the receivers that they put out and Malik Neighbors, he's a do it all type of guy. So you put him along with Harrison Jr. Man, you want to talk about an explosive offense, regardless of who the offensive coordinator would be. I think you could mess that up. Like you would have one of the more explosive offenses in the league. So I know draft talk for the NFL is way down the road, and we got to talk NFL playoffs. But it's pretty enticing just to see the type of lineups and stuff that could happen with the different draft positions. So transitioning into somewhat of a related topic with fantasy football. A lot of the championships have happened this week. I know Peebush is still in championship mode, I guess you say, in his league. But I kind of wanted to get some of the guys' thoughts of what they thought fantasy football has meant to them and their respective leagues. Because full disclosure, we're all in probably at least 2 to 3 leagues apiece. So, Zoo, since this is more so your topic, what was your thoughts on fantasy football this year?
Highs and lows, man. Joy and depression. That's all I got to say, because going in fantasy football playoff time, when you get a couple of teams that get that hope again, I'm like, man, can I get gold in all these, baby? Just give me the gold in all these. But those start bench decisions, man, you can overthink them. You can make the wrong decision. It could cost you. You could do everything I get to the playoffs. Like for example, my work league, man. I was like, I need a boomer bust guy. I took Jaylen Warren over Gabe Davis in the semifinals, man. So I started Jaylen Warren. That guy sucked it up. Gabe Davis had one of his nuclear games. Cost me a finals appearance. If I made the finals, I would have whooped ass and I would have came in first place.
Yep.
So one flex decision cost me a first place trophy. And I got my bronze penny trophy right now. I get my money back guaranteed. So that was an L. That was a massive L, man. And another league made it to the championship game, man. I looked at the kicker last minute, put in a little McClocken from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That guy McClocked me, man. Got me 1 punto. I lost my 9 points in the championship game. My team went off. I had Lamar Jackson with an MVP performance, a wasted performance. And because of a kicker, I came in second place in that league. So that's another loss. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. I can't catch a break right now. But my virtuoso team, a.k.a. the A.J. Brown, C.D. Lamb, Jalen Hurts, Trey McBride team, got it done, baby. It was an ass whooping, won by 30. It was the easiest championship, most relaxing game ever. It was up 40 the entire time. And that was quite beautiful, because if I lost that and came in second, man, I don't know what I'd be doing right now, because Jesus Christ.
That team,
man. Yeah, that, especially with that team, like Brees the Beast. I love that man. Brees Hall has been a playoff league winner in the last couple of weeks, because he's been ungodly. Like, this is what I expected more consistency. But now, maybe next year, man. This guy might be a first round pick next year.
Yes, sir.
Like, because this guy is an unbelievable talent. His speed is back. The ACL, whatever. This dude off an ACL injury still was a top 10 running back in fantasy football. So Brees the Beast living up to his name right now. Shout outs to him for helping me win a championship, man. And shout out to CeeDee Lamb because this guy finished as the #1 wide receiver in fantasy football after a slow start.
Yep. He caught Tyreek.
Oh, yeah, he caught Tyreek. And
really
people
did.
forget those first 4 weeks, a little shaky, couple of single-digit performances. A lot of owners panicking. A lot of owners traded at the wrong time. And a lot of people cashing in if you got CeeDee Lamb. So shout out to CeeDee Lamb for coming out, being an absolute stud. And I got to shout out that 92-yard catch touchdown that he had.
That
I was hyped about that.
He could have had more, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, don't remind me. That fumble at the goal line, man.
Yeah. The touchback. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he followed Justin Jefferson. But even with that, man, he had over 200 receiving yards. So, yeah, shout out to Dak.
Targets. 17 targets, man.
Makes sense. Get it to your best player, man. Maybe the Eagles could learn something about that. Get the ball to your best player and let that yak carry you. Because sometimes you just get him the ball and let your playmakers make plays because CeeDee Lamb is that dude. And shout out to Dak Prescott for making that play because he got almost sacked, man.
Yeah, so, he almost got safety. Yeah.
That was really went from a safety to a tutty within 2 seconds. So the highs and lows of fantasy football. So I'm glad I got a gold, but I got a gold. I got a silver and a bronze, man. I wanted 3 gold medals, man. I wanted to be greedy, man. I want to be greedy. But
you ain't Michael Phelps, man.
Yeah, I was trying to call him Michael Phelps, man, but I ain't him. Had the opportunity, 2 benching, 2 start-sit decisions, decided my entire fate, man. So
that's what it comes down to, man.
That's what oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, for me, man, obviously Zoo in our mutual league, man, was going up David and Goliath, me being David, of course, trying to slingshot. Just couldn't get it. James Conner, given his best performance. You want to talk about a guy that, flex? I think he's pushing that RB2 range right now. He's been a playoff league winner as of the past couple weeks, putting up multiple 19, 20, 25-plus performances. Travis Etienne also having a nice big game this week. Huge. The big one for me, though, and this guy was for 2 weeks, I think it would have been the wild card round and then the semifinals. Amari freaking Cooper, man. He showed up and showed out, averaging 36 points across those 2 weeks. And then he gets hit with the heel injury and a last-minute pull in a game that obviously didn't end up mattering too much for the Browns, having Njoku just feasting. Elijah Moore finally got going as well. Jerome Ford with some big plays, 2 receiving touchdowns. And Mr. Joe Flacco, man. I'm not calling him Tom Brady, but, man, he's got that 38-year-old resurgence late in his career. I'm actually interested to see. I know we're not talking playoffs, but I do think teams should be nervous about playing the Browns, especially if they get Amari back completely healthy when he rests this week. So Amari Cooper was a big one for me, especially in the league where I own him. It's been a wide receiver carousel for me because I focused on triple RB with Brees, Etienne, and McCaffrey. Now, that's a big loss, man, because as Sean mentioned, I do have a Week 18 2-leg championship. I don't like these. I didn't make the league, unfortunately, but with CMC out, you just start it's because usually the fantasy league winners are on winning teams. Not all the time. Brees the Beast is a good example, but CMC, Tyreek Hill, who also faltered a little bit towards the end of the fantasy league, to your point, Sue, with CD passing him. A lot of these guys, I know the Bills and Dolphins, big matchup that we might talk about. Tyreek will probably play in that game. But there's just these start sits, man. The Chiefs are in the similar situation. So I'm just hoping that the guys that I still have playing will outplay the guys he still has playing, because that's the only way I'm going to have to clutch it up. So got a silver in one, did not have a playoff appearance in my Dynasty League, and I'm going for gold, if not silver, making back a decent amount of money. I will be profiting this year. That's all that matters, man. I will be profiting in the end. And I really just wanted to shout out Amari Cooper more than anything. CeeDee Lamb, I'm going up against him in this in the 2-leg championship, so that was brutal. Yeah, Josh Allen and CeeDee Lamb both in huge games this week for playoff positioning. Absolutely brutal. Wow. I'm just hoping that my running backs show up and show out. I need another big James Conner performance because I do believe they have a chance to officially knock the Seahawks out of the playoff discussion. So just a little pride on the line. You like to play in Week 18. Guys with pride on the line, taking another team out. The Bears against the Packers will be another big one this week.
Yep.
If you have DJ Moore or Khalil Herbert, I think you got to have them in your lineup because they're going up to Lambeau. They're trying to prove that this is the system that they should be going forward with. So DJ Moore, I'm expecting him to have a huge week if you are in a similar situation to me with a Week 18 championship game. Because he's been huge in the playoffs, man. He's been huge.
Yeah, and shout out to DJ Moore. He's gave me even though I was in my 14-team league, I was playing for pride. DJ Moore exploded, and he's a guy who I will say the last couple of years I've kind of been like, I picked up the receivers, and it really hasn't burnt me to the point where like I could go back and look like, who did I pick? It's like, well, it makes sense, but it's like more just looking at how he has rapport with Justin Fields, and he's been lobbying for Justin Fields. Like I think he's, regardless of who they get a receiver next year, he's still going to be, I think, the number one guy.
Yeah.
He's just another one of those consistent fantasy players that you should just always pick. If you're trying to decide, just go ahead and pick DJ Moore. But for me, in my 8-man league, I pretty much got destroyed by CD. I kind of figured that out. I was like, there's 44 points, and this is full PPR. I was like, that's going to be hard to come back from. That's going to be hard to come back from.
13 catches.
And I will say my team was fighting. We were kind of tied after the 1:00 games, and I was just like, there's maybe a slight chance, but, he had DJ Moore too, who exploded. And I just got duds from Mike Evans. Kamara didn't really do as much. Hindsight's 2020. Maybe could have started Kenneth Walker, 16 points, but it wouldn't have mattered. The CD game was the game that just put the nail in the coffin. Yeah. So my first year in that league, that's my keeper league. So it's going to be real interesting who I am going to keep from my team to see how I can fare next year. Like I said, my 14-team league, finished 8th. I mean, I'm more so proud of that roster just because of like when I got Tank Dell, I was just like, we'll see what happens. And then I learned quickly, like, hey, he's a light up lock. Jalen Hurts is still my dude in terms of just always being consistent. And in that league, I was like probably 1-5, went on like a 6-7 game winning streak, came down to basically the second to last week, lost that game probably by like 7 or 8 points. And it was like, I didn't make the playoffs. But, in that league, it's so much in terms of like, because after the podcast, I'll show you, tell you the guys of who actually won the league. And it's mind blowing how he won the league. But it's just interesting to see, to Zoo's point of like when you're sitting and starting people. And in the 14-team league, that's really not a big problem because it's just like there's so many different types of players. And it's like you got to be more of a waiver wire guy. But in my 8-man league, I had to learn like, who do I start? Who do I sit? Who do I start? Who do I sit? And I kind of had the luxury of like having a really good team. So I really didn't have to worry about that as much. Because it's like, for example, in the Amari Cooper game where he went for like in full PPR, he went for like 55 points. I sat him in that league and I won my game by like 22 points. So it didn't matter that like I had Amari on the bench because it's just like I had my roster was so loaded, but it was just like, still it's good to see like, hey, in that league, you got to pay a little bit more attention of like how guys are really playing because they could really shift how, come a championship game. Because I will say the guy that I did play, to how your point about CD kind of having ups and downs through the season, there were plenty of times that, when you're just observing the league, he was on the bench a lot early in the season. And it was like, I knew that wasn't going to be a possibility now because of how Dak's been playing. And Dak, like I said, 17 targets. Nobody in their right mind is going to sit CD now. But it's just like, I guess you say the push and pull of like, how do you modify and adjust your lineup? So for me in that 8-man league, like I said, a lot of those guys are sharp. We're still trying to decide if we can go to 10-man or not. But with that being a 3-keeper, I got some tough decisions to make in terms of who I'm going to keep. So, and in my other league, I finished 4th, but full disclosure, there's no money on the line. So it's just like, who cares? So hopefully maybe if they incentivize and there's maybe some money next year, then it's like, okay, I'll be a little bit more serious about that league. But yeah, fantasy, my overall I guess you could say takeaways is making sure you just know how to sit the right people, start the right people. And we were just talking about this before the pod. I'm kind of done with kickers, man. Like Justin Tucker kind of had an average year. Who cares anymore? Like there's no kicker that's coming in that's going to revolutionize the game. Let's just get rid of it and get a flex.
Brandon Aubrey, man, on the Cowboys, man. He has a
flash in the pan. I'm calling it.
Touche, maybe. But yeah, the
Yeah.
kicker position. I mean, Tucker's had a good year, but not to the point where it's. I did draft him in probably like he probably goes 12th round in like a
Yeah.
12 man league. Taking him, I think it does give you upside because you can just rely on his consistency. But you also got to take into account that it also screws you based on if they're only scoring touchdowns, right? And the
Right.
Ravens have been so good at scoring touchdowns this year
Yeah.
that I mean, they had 8 touchdowns in this game. 8 touchdowns. That's just 8 extra points. That's an average game. If he even had one of those turn into a field goal, you're talking about a solid kicker performance that week. It's just the way
And teams are more like,
Going
if
on
you have more
fourth-
coaches like
fourth
Brandon
down, man.
Staley coming in, like if
Yep.
you have more coaches like him, that's like, oh, let's go for 2 points. It's like, wait a minute, no, I need that extra point. Like, no,
Yeah,
just kick the
yeah.
field goal, kick check the point. Like,
Sure.
stop going for 2 or 4th down conversions. Like, I think with the league trending that way, not saying kicker's going to be obsolete because they're not going
Right.
to take that position out, but like, there's a lot more coaches who will just go for it on 4th down when they're in
Mhm.
like 30 and 25-yard line of their opponent's
Yep.
position of the field. So I don't know, we'll see, but yeah, fantasy this year for me, like I said, I didn't win any leagues, but I was excited on how I drafted, and that keeper league, man. I'm excited to see who I end up keeping and how I'll be able to do the next year. So
Keeper leagues are interesting. They are
yeah,
interesting.
for sure. And the fact that it's 3 players like that now, it's a lot of pressure for me personally because not going through my entire roster right now, but it's like I've kind of just wanted it to be 2, so I could kind of be like, okay, I just know I want these 2, and now I feel like I'm going to be keeping a 3rd player that I really don't need to keep. Just
Mhm.
because I'm kind of trying to fight because I fight that nerve of like what I want
Tank
to do with
Dell?
that 3rd keeper.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And I don't
different league, right?
Yeah, the 14-team league was the Tank Dell league. You know what's actually hilarious? We were laughing about this because, like I said, I was telling the guys before the pod, we went out to eat early in that day for New Year's Eve, and we were just like talking about our rosters and stuff. And one of my friends actually had Tank Dell, got him off the waiver, and then traded him for Laporta. And everybody at the time is just kind of like, well, I don't know. Like Laporta, I guess when he made that trade, I don't know when that trade was, but Laporta didn't he like get a season-ending injury, like a torn ACL? I'm pretty sure, or like
No,
PCL?
that's
CJ. That's
Hawkins.
CJ Hawk. That's
Okay.
CJ Hawkinson.
It's one of those guys.
Porta
So
finished tight end 1.
yeah. So like we was going through it. We was just like, man, like we don't know how that's going to end up because like that can almost be an even trade depending on the ascension of what Tank Dell ends up doing. But at the time, we were just like, why the hell did he make that trade? And it was kind of like a last dish effort because in our 8-man league, there were only 2 teams that weren't going to make the playoffs. And he ended up being like, once he made that trade, he ended up not making the playoffs. So it was just like, that was a stupid trade to make. But
Trades also screw you, man.
Yeah. Listen, sometimes with the trades in fantasy football, for me, I always try to at least wait like 4 to 5 weeks. I hate like the guys who are trading after week 2 because like you just never know how stuff is going to happen. Like, it's only time I'm like, okay, I'll do a trade after week 2 unless it's like a no brainer.
All I gotta say,
I never get those trades.
All I gotta say is when some teams struggle after those first 2 weeks, if they panic about their 1st or 2nd round picks, man, go fishing, man. Just go fishing for a sucker. If they panic trade one of their top,
might as well. It can't hurt.
Picks. Yeah, it definitely cannot hurt. Buy low on high drafted players, always, and as soon as possible because they're gonna regress back to the mean real soon.
Trust me, I was
CD.
I was Tony P.
That was a guy. I was in the probably week 4 or 5. I was putting every trade package together to get because this guy had CD and Rashad. And at the time, Rashad was like, okay. And then CD was like really struggling. And I was packaging every player outside of Jalen Hurts to get CD and Rashad. And I thought I was, real close to getting them, which if I would have got those guys, I definitely would have made the playoffs. Not saying I would have won, but having a combination of CD, Jalen, and Rashad, those top 3 would have been nice. So I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. That's the fun part of fantasy. Like I said, making trades, getting guys off of waiver wires, and depending on the size of your league, how your strategy is. So
now we gotta wait.
Yeah, I know, right? A whole nother
8 months,
something
man.
days for fantasy. So yeah, but going into week 18 in terms of the actual football being played in the playoffs, it's so many storylines in terms of how many teams are going to be able to get into the playoffs, how many teams are going to be, looking at different quarterbacks and looking at different, positions on the field to be like, I wonder if we need to move on. So I wanted to ask the guys, what is their biggest storyline from the NFL season in terms of week 18? And P, Wish, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 aspects. Zoo, I know I'm sure you want to talk about the big game. So I'll leave that one to you. But I'm actually going with the AFC South. We're talking about a 3-way tie right now with the Jaguars holding the tiebreakers over both the Texans and the Colts. And we got divisional matchups, right? That's what Week 18 is all about. We got Jags and Titans, and we got the bigger game, Colts and Texans, right? And I know we kind of pitched this. I think the Colts were included in this discussion a couple of podcasts ago. Who would we want to see in the playoffs? Like Bengals, Colts, and there might have been one other team in there. The Colts, I don't know, man. Alec Pierce had that nice 58-yard touchdown last week or this past Sunday. Great play. Michael Pittman, not really doing too much as of right now. I mean, he's coming off that what was it, a concussion too?
Yeah, it was concussion. Knocked him out a week, actually.
Knocked him out a week, yeah. JT coming back from his injury, scored in 2 straight weeks. That's obviously like to see that for the team. I just haven't been super impressed with this team. I mean, that game against the Raiders, that was a slugfest through and through. I think that, the Colts did pull it out in the end, but this Texans team is one that I want to see in there, man. I want to see them in there with C.J. Stroud finally being back, being healthy. I know they don't have Tank, but Nico Collins, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, a solid defense, not the best, but solid. I think that the Texans take this win on the road against the Colts. And if you look at the situation, Texans win and Jags lose, they get the division, and they get the wild card if they just win, right? Because by simply knocking out the Colts, who hold the 7th spot in the wild card right now, they're taking that slot. Now, I think the Steelers can throw a wrench in that, and God knows they probably will, because I feel like they always do. But I'm not going to include them in this storyline. And then the Jaguars, man, I just don't know what to believe with this team. I mean, Calvin Ridley goes off for 90 and 2 touchdowns, and then he just does absolutely nothing last week. Beathard at quarterback, I understand that, but he did have to come in a little bit during the previous game when Lawrence got hurt. Is T-Law going to be back? I mean, if he's even 80 to 85%, he has to play this game. I mean, it's the Titans. I get it. Derrick Henry is not what he used to be. Will Levis looks like he might be a little banged up. Is Tannehill going to be the starter? You see an easy win here, but it's Mike Vrabel, man. He's a prideful man, and he likes to beat you down with physicality on his defensive side of the ball. So you can't take this game lightly as a Jaguars team member. So I just think those 2 games are huge. There's so many options that can come out of it. Obviously, they have all the tie situations and all that, which did come into play a couple years ago, as you guys might remember, with the Raiders and Chargers, with that Week 18 matchup where they could have tied and both made the playoffs, and instead the Raiders decided to kick the field goal and knock the Chargers out. But I do think this AFC South battle is way better than anything over in the NFC. I know we got like Eagles, Cowboys a little bit, but everything else seems kind of clear cut and dry at this point. Other than a couple wild card slots for teams that will not be moving on after the first round. So,
yeah, definitely a power gap between the top teams in the NFC. Teams that barely make it, and teams that are elite, man.
Yep.
As you said, man, I'm most excited about the big game, man. Because I'm still all in on the Buffalo Bills. Like, I'm telling you, this team's elite, man. They just have these weird games where they lose to the Jets, like in the Patriots. Like, I still don't. I can't comprehend those games.
They almost lost last week.
Yeah, they almost lost last week to the Patriots too. So I'm like I don't understand. They played down to competition, like clearly because they beat the Chiefs, the Cowboys.
They crushed the Dolphins once.
The Dolphins,
48-20.
They smacked the Dolphins.
So I like that. I like playing up to competition, because when you're in the playoffs, all you're playing are good teams. All you're playing are good teams. There's not going to be any more Jets and Patriots to play against where they surprisingly struggle against them. And Josh Allen, with all his warts about interceptions and turnovers, man, guy got 15 rushing touchdowns. That is absurd. Like, he's the goal line back. He's still a physical freak in nature, man. And this is not even utilizing Stefon Diggs to his fullest, because the last couple of weeks, he's not getting his crazy, like, 100-yard games, getting these ridiculous games where you say, oh, the only reason Josh Allen's any good is because of Stefon Diggs. Josh Allen passing the ball a little to everybody right now. So he's spreading the ball around, utilizing his legs a little more. And obviously James Cook has been a little pushed up a little more as a true, like a true starting running back. Right? He has over 1,000-yard seasons for this guy. So shout out to James Cook for a smaller back for rushing that many yards. So they're a new look offense with the new coordinator. Like, it's a little different, but Josh Allen's still that dude. This guy's an elite quarterback. I still have him in my top 2 like franchise quarterbacks. If I have franchise quarterback, I want Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes as my 2 guys right now still. So Josh Allen, I'm like, I know he had the interceptions. I'm like, I'm okay with them. I'm okay because of the amount of plays that this guy makes with his legs and his arms. Like, I can't even say like Mahomes. Like, Mahomes has not been that good this year either.
Worst year of his career.
Worst year of his career. Like, like he has not looked that good. And he has some really bad losses this year too. So so even like great quarterbacks like him have off years. And with Chubb out, the Dolphins, I'm sorry, that defense, man.
And Xavier Howard.
Yeah, I'm just like, they're just losing all these guys at the wrong moment. And like Watto's banged up too. So I'm just like, all these injuries coming at once for the Dolphins. Yeah, Raheem missed last games. The best running back that the guy had like almost like 20 touchdowns. So like they're just getting all these injuries to all these really important pieces at the wrong time. And obviously you see them play against a Ravens team that just absolutely ass whooped them. Like Lamar won the MVP last week. He won the MVP last week. Shout out to Lamar Jackson, who's had an incredible like he had a really up and down season, but just based on his end of the season finishes against the Niners and the Dolphins, the finishing like that and using his legs and losing his best weapon in Mark Andrews and likely just sliding right in and Zay Jones stepping up with some nuclear bombs that he's throwing downfield and him using his legs too. They just keep on rolling. Like he lost his best running back and Mr. Dobbins, and the Gus bust is here to stay, man. He just keeps losing stuff, but then he just keeps like if you look at the word valuable, like he does a lot for his team because he uses his legs, uses his arms, carrying the offense, losing offensive weapons. Obviously, the defense has been unbelievable, so don't really have to worry about that side of the football. But on the offensive side of things, Lamar Jackson is his entire team's offense. So I got to shout out to Lamar on pace to win his second MVP at the young age of, he's like less than 30 years old. I don't even know his age right now. But
26,
I think.
Yeah, he's extremely young for a guy to win his second MVP like that.
Yeah.
Like he got to show something in the playoffs. That's something we still haven't seen yet. But he has the perfect opportunity with that elite defense. So you just got to worry about the offense and getting buckets. And he's been dropping 30-plus points easy on all these elite teams.
26.
So, he's 26 years
old.
old.
So he's not in your top 2.
He's about to be 27.
Yeah, he's not in my top 2 because
really?
Yeah, I love Lamar, but man, I gotta see one playoff run.
True.
And I don't want no excuses because that defense is elite. So like the defense ain't gonna be giving up much points. So if the defense giving up 15, 20 points, you better be scoring easily more than that because you've been proving that in the regular season, especially that Niners game showed me a lot. Like that was just like, okay, that was impressive. So they were dogs and they whooped them. So Lamar Jackson, man, this is your opportunity right now. You got your money this offseason, and now you're on pace to get your second MVP, and you might be able to finish it off with the Super Bowl championship. So that'll be one for the ages.
That's a storyline to keep watching for sure. I mean, he's going to sit this week, right? They already clinched. So they're sitting him. Honestly, could be. Who are the Ravens playing? They're playing the Steelers.
Steelers going to get a free game, man.
Steelers.
Well, see, when I was looking at that bet, I want to say do I still have that up? When I saw it, like the Ravens were plus 3.5, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I was like, wait, it's week 18. So like Lamar's probably sitting. He's
sitting.
Do you still want to bet on Tyler Huntley, like maybe coming in and winning that game? Because he's
pretty good though. He's pretty
good
though.
Actually bad, backup. So it's like, I think odds on that were like 150. But yeah, I agree with all of those week 18 scenarios. I wrote down too with Jacksonville, like say they don't make the playoffs, and with the talk, which I think this will be insane and stupid, and it's just like hot take culture. But I know there's going to be a bunch of people who are, I guess you could say, solid NFL minds who don't participate in hot take culture, start having this narrative around Trevor Lawrence is like, is he the guy in Jacksonville? And most people will be smart to be like, hey, he's been injured most of the year. But just if you look at it, I guess you say in a vacuum, he's been like okay average. He hasn't been the next level guy we thought he was going to be in terms of like, oh, he's competing for an MVP, or this team is battling Mahomes and not Mahomes this year, but like Lamar for like the number 1, number 2 seed. And it's kind of crazy considering I think at one point weren't they like 8-3 or 7-3?
Yep,
you're 8-4 at least. Yeah,
8-4 at least, yeah. you were kind of thinking like they were trending towards being that team. And then, like you said, after last year, when you watched them in the playoffs, it's like, yeah, Trevor's going to take that step. So, I don't know. It's going to be. I still think it's a dumb argument because there's just not a lot of guys who can be competent at the quarterback position because a lot of guys are just not good, and he's still really really young. But I know there's going to be conversation of like, what are we doing with Trevor? Because Calvin Ridley's been inconsistent. We know, but he's had I was looking the other day like Evan Ingram's had one of his best years.
Yeah, he's having
as
a
a
great
tight
year.
end. Yeah. So I'm just wondering what the conversation with that is going to be like, and I'm kind of predicting that it's not going to be sane. But one thing I'm really interested in seeing is the NFC East and how that plays out. Because I would say the Cowboys and the Eagles are two of the most inconsistent teams in the NFL, just in terms of like how we talked about the Bills, like they play up and down the competition. Like Eagles get beat by the Cardinals. The Cowboys, and I hate doing this because it's just like, oh, well, we never know what's going to happen. But they got gifted, some home cooking with how the referees acted in that. And I'm always
that was a
fascinated
crazy call, man. I don't even know what
when
that
I
was.
see how the NFL reacts afterwards, and just like, okay, this playoff crew's probably not going to be in, or this referee crew's not going to be in the playoffs, and they've been demoted. And it's like, oh, that's just because the NFL can never come out and say we were wrong, we messed this up, we screwed this up. It's just like, we're just going to demote people and do stuff on the peripheral and not really address the issue. And that's their way of saying, hey, we were wrong, guys. Sorry. Like, we messed this up. So with the two teams in Cowboys and Eagles, like the Eagles play the Giants. I'm pretty sure it's at the Giants because I wanted to say that Giants game was in Philly, the first one. And then Dallas, who did they play?
They got by the Commanders.
Commanders.
Yeah. So to me, it's just everybody's going with Dallas like they're going to win the division, but it's just these are division games, and I just always feel like anything can happen with that. And would it shock me if the Eagles ended up getting to like the number 2 seed, or I think, is it number 3 seed? I'm not sure how that works in terms of whoever like winning the division. Like it wouldn't be shocking because
it's like Dallas loses, yeah.
Because if Dallas loses and then the Eagles win,
it depends who has a tiebreaker between the Eagles and Lions. If the Lions lose. Let's say the Eagles beat the Cowboys, but the Lions also lose, then the Eagles would take 2, Lions would stay 3. I think the only way that the Eagles and Cowboys don't face each other in the first round of the playoffs, which is ridiculous, is if the Lions win and the Eagles win. Because then the Lions, I believe, have the tiebreaker over the Eagles. I could be wrong there, but if that's the case, then the Lions would have to play the Cowboys. And it would be a rematch of that game we just saw on Saturday. Because otherwise, Eagles-Cowboys, man, first round. Whew.
Like the Lions, they play the Vikings. So I don't know.
Vikings are fighting for playoff spot. They're not gonna
I think
just
their
roll
playoff
over.
spots are pretty. I think what are they? They're like the Vikings have like a 3% chance.
Yeah, hey, but they're still gonna play.
They're gonna play tough because it's a division game and they want to. Yeah, they're not gonna just roll over. But I still would probably take the Lions in that. But
yeah.
To my point, I'm just fascinated to see how that ends up because I do think whoever, like how the Eagles and Cowboys fare in this Week 18 is going to predict how they go into the postseason. So, like, say if, for instance, the Eagles win, I think that will propel them into like, okay, we're focused now. We got to win in our last week. Let's go do what we got to do. And I also think with the Cowboys, if they win, it kind of puts them, I think, to at least host a playoff game. And their record at home is pretty damn good. So to me, I think the Cowboys more so than the Eagles want and need this game more because if they can just get a home playoff game, win that game, I do think the momentum of them possibly getting to an NFC championship and then, against all odds, get to the Super Bowl maybe, which would be a long shot. But just that confidence of them winning that last game will bring them closer into like, okay, this is who we truly are because I think the Eagles and Cowboys are just super similar in terms of like they've just been, like I just said earlier, they're inconsistent. And the Eagles, yes, they went to the Super Bowl last year, but Jalen Hurts has turned the ball over. The defense is overrated. And we kind of don't know what kind of team they can be in and out. Same thing with the Cowboys. This is more of a legacy. Like this is what they've been since the 2000s of they win all these games in the regular season, but come postseason, they're probably not going to get over the hump. And with CD and Dak being just like they're basically probably the top duo in terms of quarterback and receiver. in the NFL right now, it's like, wait a minute. Like, they got that lethal of a combo. Their defense on
No run
most
game.
occasions, I would say, is better than the Eagles, but it's like, you got Micah. You just don't know what you're going to get. So I'm just interested to see how those two teams finish. And, for my money, I just would probably put it on the Eagles because I just don't trust Dallas because to me, they should have lost the Detroit game. Week before that, they didn't look all that great. I know it was the Dolphins and it was on the road, but it's just like they're a really good team and you're probably going to have to go on the road and win. So it's like I need you to look a little bit more competent. So I still believe in Hurts, and I'm just interested to see how the East shapes out. But I don't know, man. Like you say, people, Jacksonville, if they don't make it, that conversation with Trevor is going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. Because who would have thought at this point right now in the league, or not league, but in the season, that you feel better about Fields than you do Trevor Lawrence? Who would have thought that?
That was the thing you put up last year, man.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that.
Pull a lot of people, Zoo. I think a lot of people feel better about Fields, even if he's not playing in the playoffs.
I'm telling you right now, who would have more trade value, Trevor Lawrence or Justin?
Oh, well, then. Well, listen, let me ask you a question. So you guys said Fields will go for a first-round pick. So you're saying Trevor will go for two?
I think that, but I don't know what the market says right now. I think Justin Fields is that good. You get a first-round pick, so we'll see what the market says.
I mean, I guess you would say then if Trevor goes,
I feel for a fact Trevor Lawrence could guarantee a first-round pick.
Well, here's the thing: the Jaguars got better on offense in the offseason. And I think they went 9-8 last year. Same thing.
They barely got in.
But their offense was good. Their offense was good last year. It was their defense was a little faltering. So they got worse as a team while improving with their personnel.
With weapons, yeah.
With weapons. Evan Ingram, right, having his best year of his career. Calvin Ridley supposedly coming in, taking the one spot. They did lose Christian Kirk for a little bit, and then they were obviously without Zay Jones. But Etienne had his best year, and if you actually look at the record, they follow Etienne. They win games when Etienne plays well, so which means it's all on your O-line. It's all on your O-line. It's all on your physicality. That's what ends up winning games 9 times out of 10 because if you have to respect the run game, you got to respect or you're going to just take a little bit off on the pass protection, right, on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm not saying Fields is a leagues beyond Trevor Lawrence, but I would say after the last 4 or 5 game stretch, I'd be leaning more to a 55-45 on Fields. But that's obviously give me 3% bias on that. So 52-48, man.
Nice to point out the bias. Also, another little side note, I want to see what Kansas City does in the playoffs. Because I know this week's meaningless, whatever, but I'm interested to see what goes on because speaking of fantasy football, which we just talked about last week, another reason why I had a dud was Travis Kelce did absolutely nothing. And I am really wondering what their mindset and how they're going to go playoff time. And I know people say they're just going to turn on the switch, and maybe they will because they have a proven track record.
If they do,
Super Bowl.
I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah, me too, because it's like, come on.
You've done nothing all year, man.
I had Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara, and Travis Kelce in my lineup, and Travis Kelce had 4.7 points. I'm over it. I'm over it.
David Njoku put up the Travis Kelce numbers, man, with Joe Flacco.
I'm good on Kelce.
And Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
Tight ends.
Isaiah Likely making those one-headed catches on the sideline and scoring touchdowns. So, I don't know. I guess we're going to see. But, we kind of previewed it a little bit with our Week 18 bets.
There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
We took last week off, so for me starting, I went 1 for 1 because I actually did a bet, kind of I was just screw it, let me see what I could maybe find on a Week 17 slate, and let me make a little bet, and actually I didn't place any money, but I placed a bet on the Lions beating the Cowboys, and I felt really good when I was watching the Lions in that fourth quarter, but then when they got screwed by that play, it was just whatever. They ended up losing to the Dallas Cowboys, but the week before that, I was able to call the Ravens and the 49ers, and like I said, I think in terms of the Super Bowl matchup, I don't know what the odds are in terms of like those two meeting in the Super Bowl, but I'm kind of a little biased. I want to see that now. Like I kind of think with the 49ers getting embarrassed like they did, I want to see them play the Ravens in the Super Bowl just because I think this is going to be more of a classic game because you can't get beat down like that on national TV. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to concede that Baltimore's a better team. Like, no, I think Baltimore's going to be feeling themselves if they're able to get back to the Super Bowl. And if the 49ers are able to get over the hump and get to the Super Bowl, that might be a classic game. So just, my rooting interest, that's what I'm looking towards. But P-Wish, I don't know if you remember your
Yeah, no, I
bet from the
didn't.
other week.
I had, I think that week I had James Cook and Hawkinson. Just
Yeah.
didn't pan out on that one. They didn't score. It was a tough one. But this week, man, I mean, it is tough because you got to take out a lot of the solid players that are scoring touchdowns with
Facts.
Debo, CMC, Amari Cooper, plenty of others, right? On the Ravens, right? I have right down here, Niners, Ravens, and Browns. Hell, you could probably even throw some of the Chiefs players in there too. I don't think Kelsey will probably see the field this week. Pacheco as well. Maybe he's been a bit banged up, so maybe they'll rest him. And who knows what they'll do with Mahomes. But, I'm gonna go back. So you made a good point about this earlier, man. They haven't been using Stefon Diggs much lately. Without Xavier Howard, I think he's gonna have a nice game this week. I got him scoring against the Dolphins. And then second, I'm going with another game that actually means something. I tried to pick meaningful games. Texans Colts. I'm following that JT touchdown trend, man. 2 touchdowns in a row, back-to-back weeks. Missed a couple weeks in between, but the game I was at the end of November, he had 2 touchdowns in that game. So in the last 3 games he's played, he's got 4 touchdowns. They love to rely on him, and why not in a game that means pretty much everything to a team that a lot of people thought was going to be under 500, especially since once Anthony Richardson got hurt. So I think they're going to be relying on the run game this week. So JT, Stefon Diggs is the touchdown stack this week.
Interesting. For me, I remember I picked the Dolphins to beat the Cowboys, man, because I remember just fading Cowboys on the road, and it was a really good game. It was a really good game. I got a little nervous, man, but Dolphins were able to clutch it at the end. But this week I'm going against the anti-Dolphins, man. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills straight up over them, man. I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm telling you, the Buffalo Bills are elite. The Miami Dolphins with the injuries, absolute fade. I'm done. They got no chance of doing anything. I'm telling you, when you lose all your best players to injury, sometimes it's just common sense. Like I'm just like these Chubb. This guy was a high pick, man. I believe it was a top 5 pick, and he's awesome. And Raheem's getting older. Like I'm surprised Raheem the Dream stayed that without he didn't get injured all year. Like he had a little knick-knack injuries. He just didn't practice. He just balled, and then he just goes to the Sunday and then he just gets a touchdown. But this dude's banged up too. My God, man. I love A-Chain. Like, he had an awesome game, too. But Devon A-Chain's a smaller back, more of a complimentary back with elite speed. And, yeah, he's awesome. He's a huge playmaker. But I like my bruisers in the red zone. I love those guys because you just got to convert in the red zone. Man. Yeah, exactly. You just need guys that convert in the red zone. That's why I like my Josh Allen. I love my Jalen Hurts. I like those guys. We're in the red zone. I don't want no field goal. I don't know. Field goals don't win any games, man. You get tutties, man. Tutties win championships right now. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to get it done on the road against the Miami Dolphins, a team that is reeling a little, man. I'm just telling those injuries. Like, all happened with the Tyreek Hill knick-knack injuries, the Waddle injuries. Just all these injuries happened the last couple of weeks of the season. Just seems a lot of bad luck happening at once. I enjoy watching them play. Never been the biggest Tua fan against this Bills defense. I think is an elite defense right now. So you give Josh Allen an elite defense, who's a guy who's playing some awesome football right now, even with the turnovers. -3, man. Let's get it done, Bills.
Go ahead. As long as he doesn't have to go to Arrowhead, that's all that matters, man. In the playoffs,
because I'm saying this right now. I think they could win by tutty. Yeah, I know the spread is only -3, man, because these primetime games, somehow one team usually dominates a little more than people expect. Like last time with the Niners and the Ravens, usually a team just pulls away when you're too good. You get on a streak and just completely dominate offensively or defensively. I feel like the Bills could do that to the Dolphins against a team that's really, and that's not even the most physical team now, and they're losing all their best physical players. So going with the Buffalo Bills, man. The more physical team, the more healthy team, and the team that's on high momentum right now. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills -3.
Like I was saying, I think I said this either pre-pod or during the pod. this week is just a tough betting week because you don't know who's going to really play.
Yeah.
You don't know how they're going to play. Like we could have a scenario where a couple of your best players play for a half, and then it's like the next second half they're out. So that could shift and determine games as well.
Absolutely.
But I'm kind of on the same game with Zoo, but I'm looking at the Dolphins, and I think it's more because of how they got embarrassed against the Bills previously.
And the
I
Ravens.
think that game was, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know what month that was in or what week that was, but that was a like beat down. It was like 40 something to 20. Like it was a embarrassment in terms of like the Bills. And I think I said during that week, like the Bills were kind of showing like, no. All this, you got all these weapons. Who cares? We're still the team in this division and we're going to prove it. And the Bills did that. So with this game being in Miami, I saw Jalen Ramsey, he got off of IR, and they're talking about he's probably going to shadow Stefon Diggs. I'm always wary of guys coming off the injury list being like, okay, they're ready. Like, they're ready to go. Like, usually it takes them a game or two. But, Jalen Ramsey, he's a competitor. He's tough. I think he'll be up to the challenge to at least mess with Diggs. And I'm kind of wondering if Diggs will even be used as well. Now, they're in an ideal weather location, so it's like there may be a chance for them to be more explosive, the Bills, in terms of just their offense in general. But I'm kind of banking on if Jalen Ramsey plays, I think he can kind of at least deal with Diggs a little bit. And now you're telling me it's Gabe Davis or bust. And I think Gabe Davis already used up his explosive game. So I'm kind of going to bank on him not having an explosive game
I'm
and taking
telling you,
advantage.
man.
Like,
Best
I don't
time
think it's
to
gonna happen.
the best time Gabe Davis, is gonna have a blow up game is the week before he gets a donut, man. It's always the week before he gets a 0 and then he goes off. So he hit one off.
Yeah.
God,
I don't know,
So
boys. I think you might have another pop off game. I think he's gonna go against
maybe. Who knows?
It is.
no one knows.
It is ideal weather. It is ideal weather. Like I say, you're in
Exactly.
Miami, so most teams coming down there are going to have
And they
pretty
need to
good,
win.
advantageous situations. So
They need to win. They want home field advantage winning that division. Because they win, Dolphins lose. That flips the wild card spot from, I think they're 6th right now because Browns locked in 5. You're talking about going from 6
they could be the 2
to
seed. I think the Bills
6
could be
to
the 2. Yeah.
Unless I don't know about the tiebreaker.
Yep.
Oh, the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs.
If they beat
they beat
Dolphins,
Chiefs.
man. They get the 2, man.
Yeah, because they beat the Chiefs. Yeah.
So
this is a big game.
I think with my argument is like, I think if for your Dolphins, that's why this game is more dire because I trust the Bills more, even though I'm not a big Josh Allen guy. I trust them on the road more so than the Dolphins. I think if the Dolphins have to go on the road at all, they're 1-0. So I think they're going to be playing for, we want this 2 seed. So maybe possibly we're playing the Chiefs. And if we're playing the Chiefs, we're going to host them in Miami. And I'm not saying if those two play that game, I can't even speak, that I'm picking the Dolphins. No, I'm definitely probably picking the Chiefs still because I trust Patrick Mahomes. But I think the Dolphins more likely need to be at home because as much as I don't care for Josh Allen, he did go on the road and compete with Mahomes in an AFC Championship game, so he has that experience.
And he's got
I do not trust Tua anywhere outside of Miami. I just don't now. Or that offense.
Grew up in Hawaii, went to school in Alabama, and he's only played in Miami, man. Warm weather. Come on, man.
Jared Goff, huh? Got a little Jared Goff in him, man. Got a little Jared Goff in him.
Yeah, so I'm back at home. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm banking on the Dolphins being a little bit more desperate. And two, I think they want it. I think they want the division because a lot of this talk before the season was the Bills, it's their division to lose. Like they're just not going to lose and they're the dominant team. So I think there's just a lot of motivation. And the guys that Miami had injured are tough, but the NFL has backups and maybe some of those guys show out. And to Zoo's point, A-Chain's not a goal line back at all, but hopefully he scores his touchdowns from the 30 or 35 or 40-yard line. So, maybe he'll have some explosive runs. So we'll see. But like you said, man, this slate is tough. Like all the rest of them, none of them made any type of sense. And it really wasn't good odds. I don't think I said. The Bears was another one that I was looking at. Like that might be an interesting
on the road in Lambeau.
Yeah, I saw that because
try to knock them out.
They could be spoiler.
And you talk about why you're picking the Dolphins. They got their ass whooped in week 1 against the Packers, man.
Oh,
so,
I remember.
Yeah,
I know you remember, Zoo. Jordan Love's coming out party.
I was like,
the Dolphins is for anybody looking, it's plus 140 on DraftKings. So like I said, it's not in my plus 190, plus 200 that I usually do, but plus 138, plus 140, we'll see. But Yeah, that's it for our podcast today. Like I said, last week we took off because it's just Christmas and whatnot. But we're gonna be getting real close to NBA talk. Like I said, there's so many storylines with that. We're gonna kind of incorporate that with the NFL playoffs because that is the one that rules the roost. And before I even go, I don't know why I'm losing the podcast. Like really quick, if you're a college football fan, the playoffs happened yesterday.
Great game.
Michigan versus Washington is going to be the final. Just a quick note. I'm really interested to see what Michael Penix does in this game because the last game he had in terms of just the dime throws he was making and this game going against Michigan, whose defense kind of pretty much shut down Alabama. If he's able to go out and beat Michigan, there's going to be, and for good reason, but it's going to be a groundswell of like, okay, he's definitely probably solidified as like a top 3 guy. But then if he does his pro day and then maybe he runs decent, I mean, he is a southpaw, and some people are just weirded out by that. But I wonder what the conversation is going to be because he's an older quarterback as well. So I think he might actually be more ready to play. And he's got a lot of really like elite measurables in terms of just like what you look for in a quarterback. So that's just my quick nuggets for the college football playoff. Or people should know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I just wanted to shout out Penix being an Indiana guy. Got to see how good he was. I'm super happy he's on a contender in college. Some of those deep ball throws he was throwing, I saw a comment on their highlight YouTube video today. This guy goes, he was throwing into windows the size of a dinner plate, man, and it was hitting perfectly every single time on the deep ball. The receivers didn't have to move at all. I just hope that their wide receiver was Romeo Odunze. Yeah, he's nice, but I just hope that he goes somewhere where he has a guy that can throw him deep balls like that. Because man, Penix putting up 440 and 2 touchdowns, no picks on 98% completion or quarterback rating against a solid team in Texas. Damn.
Yeah,
good for him, man. He deserves to be at least a top 20 pick in the draft.
Crazy from IU to the bowl, man.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Exactly.
Start from the bottom, man.
Yeah. So, and that was a really good find because out of high school, he was like a kind of mid-tier to low-tier type recruit. He's more of a developmental guy, but that's where coaching comes in and hard work. So, shout out to the Huskies. We'll see what they do against the Michigan Wolverines. And like I was saying, NBA is in full swing. We're going to be incorporating that a little bit more with our football talk and, of course, leading up to Super Bowl and whatnot. So make sure you guys tune into that. Tyson Talk _ is the new handle we're going by. Like I was telling the guys, we're trying to get a little bit more reach with SEO and things like that. Make sure you tune into our podcast, Apple, Spotify. Like I said, with Google Podcasts, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. You still have, I think, to the end of this month, if you're on Google, to listen. But make sure you guys, I'm not trying to count your pockets, but $9.99 on most sites, maybe $10.99 Apple, Spotify to listen to the podcast, or you can just watch us on YouTube at Quantro Knows. So make sure you tune into all of that. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.